Okay, I will call this special meeting of the Albany City Council to order. City Clerk, can we please have the roll call?
Councilmember Hanson Romero.
Here.
Councilmember Jordan.
Here.
Councilmember Lopez.
Here.
Vice Mayor Mickey.
Here.
Mayor Tiedemann.
Here. With that, we move on to our only item for this special study session on the annual sugar sweetened beverage tax review. Can we please have a report?
Yes. Good evening, Council and Mayor Tiedemann. Per the sugar sweetened beverage tax ordinance language, the City Council is to hold a study session annually to receive input and recommendations regarding the expenditure of proceeds from the tax. As part of the study session, Council will receive a status update on fiscal year 2023 funded programs, conduct a study session to receive input and recommendations for the expenditure of fiscal year 2024 proceeds from the SSB tax, and also provide staff with a preliminary prioritization of items to be funded with the tax proceeds in fiscal year 2024. So we have a brief presentation with a PowerPoint. I'll first go over the fiscal year 2023 expenditure plan and go over some of the programs that were funded, that are currently being funded with the tax proceeds. Next slide, please. Oh, yeah, okay, so I just went over this slide, what we're gonna do during this session. And then next slide. Okay, so expenditures for continued funding of the Healthy Me and Music Movement program, which taught 264 preschool, transition kindergarten, and kindergarten students the importance of good nutrition, drinking water, fitness, hygiene, and social skills. And this were mostly in classrooms in the school district, and 2 private preschools. The bike safety program provided bike safety education classes to 83 Ocean View Elementary 5th grade students, which involved bringing a fleet of bikes and helmets for students to use and bike for the first time. Move and Groove is an event to be held this weekend, actually, on April 23rd, to promote outdoor exercise through a 5K course around Albany High School and Memorial Park. And this year, they've added a half mile for children under 10. Participants are entertained by live bands situated along the course, and there will be also food trucks. Organizers expect attendance to be approximately between 500 and 800. Albany Swims is a pilot program by the Albany Unified School District to teach young children how to swim. 40 students, as of the writing of the report, 40 students have been enrolled, and significantly more students are expected to be enrolled as registration continues. SSB is also providing funding to support the Crossing Guard program during the school year. We've also purchased 4 bike link lockers at Albany Waterfront. The bike lockers have been ordered, and installation is targeted for June. And funding was also allocated for the construction of a small segment of the bike path from Peggy Thompson Pierce Street Park to Cleveland Avenue through the Saha Housing Project site. The design of the bike path has been more fully developed in recent months, and the revised costs submitted to the city is over $350,000. As a result of the increased cost, construction of the bike path will occur as part of a larger future bike path improvement project. So to date, fiscal year 2023, we've expended a little over $150,000, and an additional $143,000 is under contract to be spent. Okay. And the total allocation for the expenditure plan was $346,308. Now, for fiscal year 2024 SSB programs, We've received funding recommendations from the Parks, Recreation, Open Space Commission, the Transportation Commission, and the Albany Unified School District. They're attached as part of the staff report, attachments 6 through 8. And also, I should have said previously that we have received also progress reports from some of the funded programs this fiscal year, and they were also attached to your staff report. The projected revenue to be collected in the next fiscal year is $260,000, and approved programs will be incorporated into the city's annual operating budget. So recommendations, we've received recommendations for support for currently funded programs, so the Crossing Guard program. But you'll see that there's an additional cost to continue to fund this program. The increase in cost is due to increase in operations, but also staff retention. The Healthy Me Music and Movement can continue at the same rate or per the school district's request, and for an additional 5 classes would cost $24,000. The bike safety program also has been is very well supported and at $15,000, so no increase there. And Move and Groove also has been recommended for funding by by the Transportation Commission, I think, for $5,000. And Albany Swim, you've received also a progress report and a request for continued funding by the school district staff for $20,000. So and we've also received new recommendations, which include the allocation of funds for the access hub, an access hub for bike link lockers at Albany Waterfront. We've received also recommendations for outdoor recreational equipment on the Albany Greenway, additional locations for the installation of water bottle fillers, installation of a water source at the Waterfront Park for a bottle filler and shower, and installation of a sand volleyball court. Okay, next. So as for financial considerations, again, the projected revenue to be collected in fiscal year 2024 is $260,000. Because a sugar sweetened beverage tax is a general fund tax and there is no balance of these funds, any funds collected in excess of those expended related to the sugar sweetened beverage tax expenditure program roll into the general fund balance and at the end of each fiscal year. You've also received a recommendation from the Financial Advisory Committee, which reviewed the sugar sweetened beverage tax program on April 5th, 2023, and they recommend that Council not approve spending above the amount of revenue anticipated each year. While staff does track revenue and expenditure related to this funding plan, these funds are not accounted for outside the general fund, as they are not special revenue sources. Allocating more expenditures than revenue in any given year will exacerbate any potential budget deficit, reducing the city's general fund balance available for other core services. So that concludes my presentation. Happy to answer questions.
Are there any questions from council? Go for it.
Sure, thanks. Thank you for the report, Assistant City Manager. Is the purchase cost of a water bottle filling station, it's really $4,000 absent installation? Wow. Mm-hmm. That's pretty amazing. Okay, thanks. Let's see. So the proposal on the crossing guard that we have, or the quote, is $35.84 per hour. If the city were to administer that, which I know is complicated, and the administrative costs were taken out of that, I'm sort of curious how much would be left to pay crossing guards. In other words, how does this price compare to what the price the city would be paying were it to administer directly, which I know is a complicated question, so you might want to bring back an answer.
Right. Yes, we can do that.
Okay. Do you know, are there other sources of funding? Has Move and Groove secured other sources of funding? I recognize that I think their request last year was for $6,000. It's for $5,000 this year, so I'm happy to see it head in that direction. I don't know if you have any feel for what other funding they have.
I don't have information on how
Okay.
they're funding the entire program, but I know that the $5,000 is paying for the bands.
Right. And that's paying for the event this weekend?
Yes.
Okay. Interesting budgeting, okay. Yeah, I think that's all I have at the moment.
Yeah, because I was noticing the Move and Groove, I guess they're collecting money on the registrations and stuff.
Yes, they
So
are.
that's helping offset, I'm assuming, some of the cost to the program. And then a lot of the recommendations of, items that were put up there as kind of dream list, how many of those are really feasible to actually be done? I mean, are we looking at really anything that the money could technically, realistically be allocated for? I know volleyball courts was one of the things mentioned, but that seems like something that would be really far off in doing, so it doesn't seem like we should even think about putting money towards something like that wouldn't actually be able to get accomplished. And again, like that with the water filling stations and, what kind of research has been done around the areas of those projected filling stations, and are they actually really needed in those areas? So those are some of the questions that are coming to my mind.
Yes, exactly. None of the research has been done, and for the water bottle filling station, so this is something that staff would have to look into if council decided to move forward with any of the bottle filling station. Some of the projects are included as new recommendations. All of them would be very difficult to do within a year because they included with them is a planning process, which would not be feasible for us to do, to complete in 1 year. So between the planning process and then which would include, we would want to do a lot of outreach to our community because we do have, as part of the Parks Master Plan, areas in our city that call for some development of new amenities, but we'd have to do a pretty robust outreach process and potentially, include some of these recommendations in the future. But at this time, within a 1-year plan for the expenditure of the funds, it's really not feasible at this time to do.
Makes sense. And, and then maybe this would be something that maybe could be, sounds like some of these, from what you're saying, some of these needs can be fulfilled with buckets of money from other funding sources. So I'd probably like to suggest maybe we remove some of those that could be funded through other means and take a look more of what we've been spending and kind of keep it within that, because so we've spent $346,000 on the current.
The current allocation was $346,000, but to date, let's see where my number was. It was in my chart. It was around $150,000, and then we have another $145,000, I think, in that has been contracted. So we expect to pretty much expend close to the total $349,000 that was allocated for this fiscal year.
For this year. And then, so what we're trying to do is keep it probably more with the projected $260,000.
That's
Is
correct.
where we want to
Yes.
really target for.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council? Seeing none, we
Actually,
will.
I'll ask another question.
for it.
So it occurs to me to ask if the 61K for the cycling path, multi-use path, behind the Saha development could be deallocated, because I have a feeling that's going to be quite a while until that path is built and might be funded by an entirely different mechanism. So I'm just curious to get staff's thoughts on that as a possibility. Is that a bad idea because you're relying on that as local funding for a grant application, or just what does staff have thinking around that?
Well, the money that is not spent by the end of the fiscal year goes back to the general fund. So we
Okay.
do not reserve any fund at the end of the fiscal year for things that were not funded during the time frame. But most probably that $355,000 for the bigger project will come out of some other funding source.
So does the amount that has been spent plus in contract doesn't include the 61,000? I
That's
presume?
correct.
And is that entirely from last year? Did we actually allocate all that last year?
Yes.
320,000? Okay. I don't remember what the other big items were. I guess I can go back and look.
Well, it was on the chart that was,
It's maybe the retrospective.
so if you look at the,
Is it attachment 1?
yes, and then it's here also. So you see that this was the allocation for this fiscal year, for the fiscal year 2023.
Right. 65, 95. Okay, thanks.
So except for the bicycle path, all other programs will be fully funded.
Yeah, quick add gets 300, so close enough. Yep, okay, thank you.
Okay, unless there are any other questions, we'll take it to public comment.
Hi, I'm glad to get a chance to speak about this. I was going to go to the other meeting, and at the wrong time was posted in the e-news. You probably know that already, but it was very frustrating to a couple of us who hoped to attend. I would like to, again, I've done this before, suggest that some of the money be set aside for direct cash payments, or what's called as universal basic income, or there's other names for it. As a pilot program in Albany, it could even be seed money if you wanted to apply for grants, but maybe it just as a pilot program. It wouldn't have to cost that much if you started it very small. For example, if you had $200 a month for 10 people, that would be $24,000. Or if you had $300 a month for 10 people, it would be $36,000. There's a lot of times where cities make decisions for people about how the money is going to be spent. And I know you're concerned about health. One of the best ways that you can support people's health is by giving them the autonomy to decide what they need and what will make their life better. And if you look at all of the many programs that are the cities that are providing this kind of program, and more cities are doing that, and I can send links to you if you like, they are finding that they're very successful. People are not, I know there's a fear somehow that if we don't control how people are going to spend money, that they will spend it what we would consider unwisely, but that's actually not what's happening. It's enriching people's lives. And I think that we owe it to the community to be considering everybody, and by providing these really select programs, they're hearing from people, they're not going to come to city council meetings, they're not going to tell you, and this would be an amazing opportunity to provide that kind of support and autonomy, as I said. And I would really like to see this happen in Albany, and I hope that you can do that. I was also wondering if you didn't fund or didn't totally fund the crossing guard program, what would happen? Would it just disappear, or would the school district pick it up? Or I don't know how we ended up spending such a huge amount of money on the crossing guard program. And I also, the only one that I could see of the programs that you're funding right now that is really targeting low-income families is the Albany Swims. Other than that, they're kind of for general, a lot of privileged people are probably taking advantage of these programs. And I would like to see us be really, really cognizant of the variation in income in Albany and be considering everyone and not just a select few. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Hi, I'm Kim Trutane, the Support Services Coordinator for Albany Unified School District, and I'm here tonight with our Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services, Dr. Ann Shen, and our Chief Business Official, Jackie Kim. We just wanted to briefly thank the council for funding so many programs over these years that have positively affected AUSD students. We turned in the document in for your backup. We're very supportive of the Crossing Guard program that makes parents feel confident enough to allow their children to walk or bike or scooter to school. And we very much appreciate the difference that has made. We're seeing more students walking and rolling, especially in the crossing of Marin, since those infrastructure changes have happened and because of the crossing guards. I want to turn it over to Dr. Ann Shen briefly to talk about the Healthy Me program, which we've had for a number of years and also has shown an effect on our students' eating habits.
Kim, good evening. Thank you so much for having us here tonight. And on behalf of our youngest learners, I'd like to share the deepest and most heartfelt gratitude and thank you for funding this program. The Healthy Me Kids program has been serving our youngest learners for the past 5 years, and it is teaching healthy eating and drinking habits through music and movement. And this kinesthetic learning is so engaging. Just even watching the video or seeing them in person is so heartwarming, and we know that this learning will stay with them a lifetime. So again, I'd like to thank you on behalf of our youngest learners for very, very important lessons they're learning through this important program. Thank you so much.
Good evening. So I'm going to talk briefly about the Albany Swim. So this really provides our socioeconomic disadvantaged students for the swim lessons that it's really about the safety that they can protect themselves. So you are providing lifetime lessons to the students. So this is very emotionally like, oh my God, we are doing such a great thing for our students in our community. And also now we have a robust program for swim aquatic centers. So because of pandemic, we were closed for a while, and now we were getting up there. Now we are fully programmed. So we are very excited, and spring classes are all full, so they are ready to register for summer starting May 1st. So we are very excited, and thank you.
Thank you for your comments. And very efficient to get all three in 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Sam Tukheim. I live in Albany, and I'm here to advocate for the beach volleyball courts. I've been playing beach volleyball since 2007, and there seems to be quite a bit of scarcity of courts. Oftentimes I drive down to Alameda, or I would go to Berkeley, except they're oversubscribed there, not enough courts. That would be my first option. I go to Moraga. So I think it would be an awesome addition to have beach volleyball courts in Albany. Beach volleyball is an awesome sport that can be enjoyed by, people of all ages and skill levels. It's a growing in popularity as well. So I think it'd be a great addition, and I'm just here to support that.
Thank you for your comment.
Hi. My name is Francesco Papalia. I'm a member of the Financial Advisory Committee. And I'm wanting to speak and make you alert that the staff report, for some reason, I think very poorly described our recommendations to you. We had a rather a lively discussion about this, and I don't know why, and we had a proposal, a motion that was made, amendments were made to it, and for some reason, the staff report simplified the entire thing into the Financial Advisory Committee advises you not to spend more than whatever comes in. And I'm finding it increasingly difficult as a member of that committee to have our voice be heard to you. And I don't see any reason why our entire motion was not included. I know that I made the motion, and one of the key elements of the motion had to do with the fact that we are in a deficit year in our budget, okay? And the Financial Advisory Committee advised that you don't spend any money more than it comes in a budget year that we're trying to deal with a deficit. Why did that part that says because we're dealing with a deficit was, I'm going to put it quite bluntly, censored from our motion and our recommendation? And I apologize that there was an additional part that another member had added on to it that I can't recall. I was just trying to go into the video to try to pull it up. But this is rather strange, and that we are not allowed to provide the recommendations when it's really just a matter of a few sentences. So I'd like the council to make someone on the council investigate how our recommendations to you are supposed to be communicated, because it seems like that the staff decides on their own what we say and what we didn't say. We were literally censored. And so the facts should come out on this, and otherwise that's our job, is to review this thing. And we spent a lot of time and energy, and I feel we were short-changed. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for your comment.
Hi, this is Julia Chang Frank. I'm a Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Commissioner. Thank you, council members, for hearing this. So I'm speaking today not on behalf of the commission, but informed by my work on the commission. I'm here today to just make my own public comment. I just wanted to strongly support both funding for the outdoor recreational equipment that the Parks Commission recommended, the first bullet point, and also the sand volleyball court. I know that there's a consideration about how to expend the funds in the same year, and that there will be some public process needed to cite a sand volleyball court. But I know from my time on the commission in the past that we've sometimes needed a small amount of funding even for that investigation. So for example, when there was a bocce ball court estimate, there was some funds needed to even hire the person to look at what's needed to install a bocce ball court. So I would think that if there's been an outpouring of support for volleyball, that maybe a very small portion of the funds can be even set aside just to investigate locations and to get somebody out there to give us some professional perspective of where a sand volleyball court could be sited and the approximate cost for future funding. Also, just wanted to put a word in about the recreational equipment along Albany Greenway, especially as it applies to, just equity and public access. I think that recreation equipment is really well used, to the point that sometimes we've had to replace because it's so used so frequently. I think there's other spaces along Albany Greenway where it would just be, the purchase of equipment for public use that could really activate an underutilized space. So I hope that you might consider funding, sending some funds for those two items that I think are very modest in price and could benefit a large portion of the Albany population. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Judy Kerr. Judy, I don't think we can hear you. Please go ahead and send your comments to citycouncil@albanyca.org. Thank you. That's all.
Let us know if Judy comes back and can comment. I noted down 2 questions that I want to get staff's response to before we go into council discussion. First, as we kind of discuss every year, what happens if we don't fund the crossing guard program as much as is suggested here?
If we don't fund the crossing guard program with this funding, we would find other funds to do so, unless there is a policy decision that we don't want as many guards as we currently have, which would impact the safe crossings to each of our schools.
That's what I figured. Thank you. And then there was another question about why the Financial Advisory Committee report wasn't included.
Sure. To the point of order with regard specifically to the ordinance establishing the sugar-sweetened beverage tax, there are 3 parties named in terms of advisory. It's your Parks, Recreation, Open Space Commission, your Transportation Commission, and formerly your Social and Economic Justice Commission, now RISE, as well as the school district and any individuals with expertise in the general fields of health. The Financial Advisory Committee proactively addressed this item on one of their agendas, was conveyed in the staff report as a summary of that action. In addition to that, there is another sentence that was indicated by the speaker. The full recommendation, which I'm happy to read for the record, is council recommendation to allocate no more than what is projected to come in, especially in a year that there is a projected budget deficit.
That's their full recommendation, what
Yeah.
you just read. That's about what I expected it would be, because those are the ones that are expressly called out, though for the sake of openness, we might attach the recommendation to the budget when it comes before us again, or something like that. Does anyone on council want to start us off? Not everybody jump at once.
I'd be happy to start us off.
Thank you. Go right ahead.
So I noted that staff is anticipating $260,000 in income. It's interesting to note that that's pretty consistent. I think one of my first comments was going to be, why are we allocating tax funds when we don't know how much money we have? Why are we not collecting tax funds and then saying for the following fiscal year, we shall use that amount of money? I'm not actually saying that because of the consistency of the funds and because of the advice both from staff and from the Financial Advisory Board that we work within the bounds of what is anticipated, so that if the funds come in lower, we're not necessarily way off the mark. If we come in above, the general fund has a little bit extra funds. Those funds can always be reallocated by staff in the next fiscal year's budget. So I am interested in noting that last year's council allocated almost $350,000. I'm not sure what they were told was the anticipated amount, but and I think I want to start there because I think the Crossing Guard program is an incredibly important program on so many levels. It's safety, it's making our community feel safe in getting to school, whether you're in a car, you're walking, you're biking, whatever mode you're going. But in looking at AUSD's numbers from what was budgeted in 2021, that was $160,000. Last year, we budgeted $191,000. This year, the request is for $213,000. That's a 33% increase from 2021, what was allocated. It's also currently now at 82% of our projected amount of tax income. I say this not because I feel like we shouldn't fund this program, but I say this because we need to find another source of funding, whether that is through our standard budgeting process, whether that's through grant processes, because otherwise what we're left with is 18% of the sugar beverage tax fund coming in that we have to find and find what's the most equitable way to make sure that our community is staying healthy. And that number, is my guess, will continue to increase and continue to chip away at the overall percentage. And so I was kind of chomping at the bit to start this conversation because I have grave concerns about how much of the budget is consumed by this one line item. I think many of the items that are listed here are things that I would love to approve, but I am very hesitant to approve more than $260,000. 260, yes. Make sure I get my thousands right there. And I think there are items on this that have been requested of us that I believe are also appropriate for us to fund and or look into, but those I feel like could happen through our budgeting process as we see the remainder of what money we have and how it fits into the greater programs. I look at the programs that are run through the school district, whether it's swimming, bike safety, teaching our young children healthy habits for both eating and activity, and I feel like these are completely appropriate and like spot on to me on what we should be doing with the sugar-sweet beverage tax. So I hope that Movin' and Groovin', and I think Mayor Tiedemann mentioned this, I hope that over the long term, Movin' and Groovin' is an event that finds enough sponsors that the city does not have to sponsor through cash allocation, but instead is providing assistance through in-kind, whether that's police services, whether that's whatever services are needed where our staff can be allocated to do that as opposed to necessarily allocating funds. I think I'll stop now because I mean, that's my frame of reference at looking at this amount of money.
I can speak for the thinking of the last council since I was one of the members. And again, with deference to the caveat that this is not a reserve fund, the council's never chosen to set it up as a reserve fund. But I don't know if the council asked for or it was provided. I don't remember the history on this. The total spending to date versus the total revenue to date. And it was found that the total spending to date as of that time was considerably less than the total spending to date. And so my perspective is that yes, legally it's a general fund item, revenue, but as a council, as a city, we have a good thing going with the voters, that they make recommendation on how funding should be spent, and we're hewing to that for the most part with this tax, and then subsequently with the utility user tax increase that occurred in 2020. And so I have an interest in maintaining that faith with the voters. And so last year, I think the allocation was an attempt to catch up a bit, not even all the way. And so with the $61K not being spent, the numbers I received today upon request was that, let's see, what are the numbers I have here? There's been a total of, including the what is encumbered, so not under contract, is $1.23 million, and the revenue to date, including this, I guess including maybe the first half of this year, I'm not clear on that, is $1.57 million. So it's still, the general fund is still net positive over the time period. And there was very specific reason, political reason that it was chosen to be general revenue tax was because the prior sugar sweetened beverage tax had failed in Richmond. Richmond was the first in the country, if I recall, to go for it, to its credit. And so because it had failed there, a strategic choice was made not to go for a special tax. I mean, the desire was for it to be a special tax so that the funding would exclusively be spent on these items. But because of the difference of a 2/3 versus simple majority passage, the decision was to go for a general tax. As it was, it passed with way over 2/3 support.
Thank you.
Guess I should turn on my microphone. One of the things that I'm, obviously the crossing guards are near and dear to my heart, my grandmother being the first adult one. I'm curious as far as how many other potential vendors could we get estimates from as far as crossing guards comparable to where they're coming from now? I'm not sure exactly who's in charge of looking at those contracts, if it's the school district or if it's our staff, but I'd be curious to get bids from other providers potentially, as well as, going back to your question as far as if the city were to take it over, what would the cost be in that respect of things? I too think, crossing guards, I agree with you, Vice Mayor Mickey, that it's definitely important. And again, also the programs being provided are also important. So I would want to see those continue on. But stuff that we know that we can't possibly complete or use the funds, I want to kind of remove those off the table. Yeah, and I think that the Move and Groove could potentially bring on more sponsors and help pay for that in other ways. So those are just kind of some of the thoughts that are kind of going through my mind.
Yeah, and then for me, I too have a difficulty wrapping my head around the updated quote for crossing guard program. And again, like what fellow council members are expressing, is definitely is a necessary component for our community. Speaking as a father to a child in the school district, who them and their friends, they appreciate it. It does give them that sense of having like a safety blanket, particularly when school's out and sometimes they do come across unfortunate incidents, but there's an adult there. But also, I think it's worth addressing, worth acknowledging too, and maybe this is just me speaking anecdotally, but there have been numerous moments my child comes home from school and them and their friends complain that the crossing guards didn't help them cross the street. And or they said that they had stopped traffic themselves or tell the crossing guard, like, hey, I'm trying to cross. Now, I'm not trying to drag anyone for their job, and I know in any field and any capacity that we work, we do easily get distracted. But one would assume if you're there as a crossing guard, you're on alert at all times, and that the children shouldn't be having to tell you to do your job. And I bring this up too because one of the intersections, I'm not going to name the intersection because I don't want any one individual to be pointed out, but one intersection I do often go through, and I see the person that we're hiring sitting down while people are trying to cross. And I just look at that, and my child looked at them when I'm dropping them off in the morning, like, why is the city paying them? Again, I'm not trying to attack anyone, but I do think this does need to be publicly stated and acknowledged that if we are moving forward with this same vendor, then we can give them a chance and at least put them on notice, like, hey, retrain your folks, or let's make sure people are held accountable. I'm also open and agreeable to the idea of looking at comparable vendors for different quotes, but I think this does warrant significant attention just because of the amount of money that's being allocated for this or potentially allocated for this. I just, again, want to be abundantly clear. I'm not trying to attack anyone for being out there and doing their job because at the end of the day, they do make a lot of our children feel safe just having presence, especially on corners where there's not heavy foot traffic like what you see on Solano Ave. But there are other areas throughout the city where there are crossing guards, and that let the child at least feel safe enough to know that that's a route that they could take home. So there are a lot of benefits to it, but I do also, again, just want to make clear whatever way or whatever capacity we move forward with funding a crossing guard program, the folks we got working for us in the city need to do their job.
Thank you for sharing that experience. I definitely think if we have the clientele of this program, my school children, even complaining to their local city council member, their dad, that things are not going as they want it to, then we should definitely look at that. I'm also sensitive to Vice Mayor Mickey, your concern of this is taking up a bigger and bigger portion, which I think is obvious to anyone who's watching it. I will say I generally agree. I'm not sure. It may always be one of those things where it's hard to do in the moment because in order to move this to a different part of the of our general fund, we need to expand the general fund by $200,000 or so, which I think we need to expand it by a lot more than that in the next couple of years, but that's a bigger conversation. But you're right in that it means that there's a decreasing amount every time for funding all of these other programs, which I think are all very good programs that hit this on the head, that are providing classes or events or services or public infrastructure, all the types of things that we should be encouraging people as part of this program. And to actually respond to one of the commenters of, only one of these programs has a socioeconomic, for targeted aspect to it, but I think it's because all the other programs that are part of this don't need to. They're publicly available. They are city infrastructure. They are the type of thing that benefits everybody in the city, probably most especially those who are lower income, who are going to be taking advantage of that. So I think there are very good reasons to fund a lot of these. I'm curious, we seem to all be in some agreement on where we're going, and we, as often happens in our experience, talking a lot about the crossing guards. I'm curious what, if any, changes anyone on council would like to make to the recommendations that we've got in front of us, with the understanding that I think even what's suggested in one of these attachments is totals to, quick math in my head, 270 or something around that.
Yeah, so I got, if we take out the items that don't have a definite cost at this time, I get 282.
Even bigger than my mental math was giving me.
So I'm interested in moving that. I know it's over 260. It's over the recommendation. It's not hugely over it, and that's a very small amount over relative to how far behind the spending is. And so I think it's reasonable for this year, with the caveat that that we recognize we need to work on the crossing guard situation, and I hear we're providing some direction in that regard that needs to be focused on. And I would say the other items, I'm not discounting the other items, but they're not ripe enough to put in the funding stream for the following year. And I think, as staff has said, for the Ohlone Greenway, for instance, should the sand volleyball court or additional outdoor exercise equipment be added there, that's a whole planning process that needs to be done holistically for the Greenway. So I think I, for my part, would keep those items in mind for adding to, if the Parks, Rec, and Open Space Commission doesn't have its own accord, adding to its work plan when it brings it forward, so that there can be the planning work, there can be the scoping of what is the cost, and so we actually have a cost for each of those items, which we don't now. So I don't think we're making a motion tonight, or are we making a motion tonight? I can't remember if we're just sort of
think
providing
so,
general
but-
direction.
Ideally, yes, so
Okay.
that we can package it into your upcoming budget conversations.
Okay, well, then I'll move that we fund, I'll be specific here, the crossing guards, the Healthy Me Music and Movement Program as requested at the $24,000 level. Yeah.
Pause you before
Sure,
we go
yeah.
into a motion.
Uh-huh.
Can we have Judy Care's statement read into the public record, which I can do if you prefer, City Clerk?
The email.
That we just got an email.
I'm impressed you're monitoring email in the middle of all this.
I wasn't. Councilmember Lopez told me we were. I tried to, because sometimes things like this happen. But because Judy attempted to make public comment, and I'm assuming due to technology could not, we'll read that into the record. Judy says, I strongly disagree with the characterization of the financial advisory resolution on the sugar-sweetened beverage tax as having been censored. My recollection and review of the minutes indicate that the committee agreed that we were headed into a net negative financial time, that there is a looming unfunded liability, and that the cost of some programs is concerning. I believe the council recognizes that there is no fund balance for this revenue. I believe that the council understands that the school district does not pay for transportation and that crossing guards can be paid from other funds. Thanks. Judy, thank you for your comment and your patience and working through your technology issues. Now, please continue.
Okay. Yeah, maybe with that, a little preamble comment. Some people bring up to me periodically that the school district should be contributing to the crossing guards. Just to be clear about my perspective, the city owns the streets. It's the city's responsibility to make sure that all people can safely travel the streets, and this is part of meeting the city's responsibility. So I am certainly inured to the city paying for the crossing guards, with the caveat that I think we need to have some work to do on cost management. So I will move funding the crossing guard program as presented to us, with the direction that further consideration needs to be made over the next year around cost containment and other approaches. The Healthy Me Music and Movement Program at the $24,000 level as requested for its expansion. $15,000 for bike safety, $5,000 for Move and Groove, $20,000 for Albany Swims, and $5,000 for the bike link card access to the new waterfront lockers, which was not included in the allocation last year. And like I say, I come up with a total of 282 for that.
And with that motion, it would be still that we would be, again, looking into the crossing guard. I'm with you, Councilperson Lopez. I've noticed the same things, so it's, yeah. And it's one of the things that I've brought up as well, just making sure that the guards, if they're going to continue on with this particular provider, that they get better training, that they in turn control the movement of people rather than people giving them the reactionary movement. So with that being said, and knowing still that we're pinching over that 260,000 projected, remind me, what was the amount again that was actually collected the last?
We estimate that there'll be $260,000.
No, what was it this
Well,
past?
300 and, well, the
What was projected last year and what was actually?
260,000.
And what was actually collected?
Well, we don't, this is this current fiscal year, so we're still collecting.
Okay, okay, so how?
So
but it
it's
was
a rolling
collected-
fund, so if it goes a little bit over, it would roll.
Okay,
So the proposal by Councilmember Jordan could be captured even though it's a little bit over.
okay,
So just, I think to your question, in fiscal year '22, the collected amount, according to the staff report, was $261K. 21 was 265, 20 was 277, which, as an aside, given inflation, I'm actually encouraged to see that, because this is a tax that ideally would end itself, because that would be the healthiest
People
outcome.
would, yeah, once, well, it's in that sense, yes, if we're teaching the students now early on and they, use sugar-sweetened beverages less and less, then of course what's going to come in is going to overall in time be less and less.
Right, so that's the goal. So
Yeah.
I'm happy to see that trend.
Yes, okay. So with all that being said, I'm happy to second your motion.
Before we go to vote, one question. There is one program on here that has an increase from last year, besides the crossing guard program, which is the Albany Swims, I believe. Do we have any more detail on why we are increasing that? I believe that was 13,000 by their, or am I getting it wrong?
That was a
Albany
healthy.
Swims actually went down.
It went down.
Last-
I was looking at the wrong number then.
It was Healthy Me.
It's Healthy Me Music and Movement. To fund it at the current level would be 13,100, but the school district is requesting 5 additional classes, and in order to accommodate those 5 additional classes, there would need to be additional funding for this, which would be a total of $24,000.
And I'll comment just in my personal experience, which I don't have personal experience of this class, but I think it was in 4th grade at my elementary school, there was a film shown about essentially processed food, and I still have the image burned in my mind. I don't know why Coca-Cola allowed the filming of this, but it showed the Coca-Cola plant and the amount of sugar that went in each bottle. And I immediately went home and started throwing everything out. My mom freaked out and was like, okay, let's eat this first and then we'll change. And that's basically when I started drinking water. So I am only one data point. I recognize that as a scientist, but I think it can be tremendously impactful.
What you're saying is we should just buy that film and show it everyone? Okay. Thank you for that clarification. I believe now we have a motion and a second. City Clerk, can we please call the roll?
Councilmember Hanson Romero,
Aye.
Councilmember Jordan,
Yes.
Councilmember Lopez,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mickey,
Yes.
and Mayor Tiedemann.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. That brings us to the adjournment of this special meeting. Quick poll of the council informally. Do we need a 5-minute break, or do you guys want to go straight into it? Hey, nay.
I'm good with going ahead. Maybe a break later. I don't know.
Let's
See
do
how
it.
See how it
Nah,
goes.
it's not that heavy an agenda. We can
Yeah.
get through it all quickly.
Yeah.
2 hours. 2 hours. Go team. With that, then, we're going to call this regular meeting of the Albany City Council to order. And would Vice Mayor Mickey please read the land acknowledgement?
The City of Albany recognizes that we occupy the land originally protected by the Confederated Villages of Lejeune. We acknowledge that genocide that took place on these lands and must make strides to repay the moral debt that is owed to this indigenous people, specifically the Ohlone tribe. We thank them for their contributions, which have transformed our community and will continue to bring forth growth and unity. The City of Albany commits to sustaining ongoing relationships with the tribe and together build a better future for all that now make this their home.
Thank you. City Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilmember Hanson Romero,
Here.
Councilmember Jordan,
Here.
Councilmember Lopez,
Here.
Vice Mayor Mickey,
Here.
and Mayor Tiedemann.
Here. That brings us to ceremonial matters. We have 3 proclamations at this meeting. The first is going to be a proclamation on National Crime Victims' Rights Week, where I believe we have Kelly Sage, the senior victim advocate, who will be accepting the proclamation on behalf of the DA's office. And that's the right one. Will Councilmember Lopez please read the proclamation?
In recognition of National Crime Victims' Rights Week, April 23rd, 29th, 2023. Whereas more than 26 million people become victims of crime each year, and these crimes also affect family members, friends, neighbors, and coworkers. And the Alameda County Victim Witness Division is dedicated to ensuring the rights of crime victims and their families by providing services to aid in their recovery from the emotional, psychological, social, and economic impact of crime as they reclaim their sense of safety, well-being, and dignity. The Victim Witness staff assists victims of crime without regard to a person's race, gender, religion, nationality, sexual orientation, and gender identity or immigration status. And whereas victims are faced with many challenges as a result of crime, oftentimes victims enter systems that fail to meet their needs, provide appropriate services, and fail to treat them with the dignity and respect they deserve. And involving survivors help victim service providers and criminal justice professionals understand the culture, value, and expectations of underserved and unserved victims who seek assistance and justice. And whereas the Alameda County District Attorney's Office Victims Witness Assistance Program was the first such program established in 1974, beginning with one victim advocate. Today, the Alameda County District Attorney's Office employs more than 60 individuals dedicated to working with victims of crime, and whereas in 1984, the Crime Victims Fund was established by the Victims of Crime Act, VOCA, to provide a permanent source of support for crime victim services and compensation. Alameda County District Attorney's Office Victim Witness Assistance Division partners with survivors, community service providers, criminal justice professionals, and victim advocates are working together to enhance a criminal justice system response that is accessible, culturally competent, and appropriate for all victims of crime. And whereas in 2022, the Alameda County District Attorney's Office Victim Witness Assistance Division provided over 272 services to more than 52 crime victims in Albany, including but not limited to child victims of violence and sexual abuse, stalking victims, survivors of homicide victims, human trafficking, crimes against elders and dependent adults, sexual assault, domestic violence, robbery, and other crimes. For victims of crimes without independent financial means, the District Attorney's Office facilitated financial support through the Victim Compensation Program. And whereas the Alameda County District Attorney's Office has been a leader in outreach and services to underserved populations, including commercial sexual exploitation of children, sexual assault victims from cold hit DNA cases, immigrant victims, urban youth, and victims in the LGBTQ community, as well as victims with disabilities such as deaf and hard of hearing. The Alameda County District Attorney's Office has been bridging the gap between law enforcement and the community and building the community trust in the criminal justice system. And whereas the National Crime Victims' Rights Week, April 23rd to 29th, 2023, provides an opportunity to celebrate the energy, creativity, and commitment that launched the victims' rights movement, inspired its progress, and continues to advance the cause of justice for crime victims. Now, therefore, the City of Albany does hereby proclaim April 23rd to 29th, 2023 to be Victims' Rights Week in the City of Albany, and reaffirms the commitment to respect and enforce victims' rights and addressing their needs during Victims' Rights Week and throughout the year, and express our appreciation for those victims and survivors of crime who have turned personal tragedy into a motivating force to improve the response of victims of crime and build a more just community.
Just like to say good evening. And on behalf of the Alameda County District Attorney's Office and the Victim Witness Division, I thank the Albany City Council so much for proclaiming the Victims' Rights Week and for recognizing our efforts to assist crime victims. And we look forward to continuing our work together as we assist the people of Albany and the rest of Alameda County. So thank you again. This is a wonderful honor.
Thank you. Is there any public comment on this item? If there is, can we do 1 minute, please?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Hi, good evening. This is Jeremiah Garfiquello. Thank you, District Attorney, for coming to Albany. I was wondering if victims of crime regarding fentanyl poisoning I know that in certain areas of California, if a victim overdoses accidentally on fentanyl, I believe the person who sold the drug to somebody, I believe is a criminal. I was just wondering if you could get back to us, City of Albany, regarding fentanyl poisoning and what victims' rights are regarding that sort of crime. It's kind of a new thing, and I know where Albany's working on this right now, and John Mickey is doing a really good job, so I hope John Mickey and District Attorney keep in contact. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. That's it? Okay. It's going to bring us to our second proclamation, which is, unless council has any comments, please go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, if I could just thank you for coming. And did I catch in the proclamation that this movement started in Alameda County? If you could come to the microphone, sorry, because there's people out there in virtual world. We'd love to hear your voice.
Yes, I wasn't expecting a history question, but yes. So
I'm a geologist, so I love history.
I've been in the office for 24 years. So
wow.
I have my understanding of the history is there were 5 to 6 different district attorney's office throughout the country that were given funding to start this program. We were the first in the state of California, and yes, we have been in existence since the 70s and have been in the forefront and being progressive in fighting for the rights of victims in the criminal justice system, so their voice is heard.
So this is I don't expect you to have the answer to this, but was the funding from government or a foundation? Do you have any idea at the time? You said there were 5 or 6 offices that were funded.
Yes, it was actually a federal grant.
Oh, okay. Right.
So they went out and they did a widespread national survey on the needs of victims. And that's how we came to really dial down on what the needs are and to start putting into place programs that would assist them.
Thank you for providing that critical bridge through that terrible experience for people.
Any other council comments?
I just want to acknowledge and share that in our proclamation we heard, I read out that there was response to 52 cases in our own community here in Albany. And I just want to acknowledge that those are our neighbors, those are our fellow community members, and speaking for myself, very appreciative of the support that's given to those folks who may not at times feel visible. Also speaking from someone who has been victim of multiple litany of crime and not feel like our situations are heard. So to know that 52 fellow humans in our community were taken care of and getting the necessary support and resources that they need to heal makes me feel happy. And whatever way our community can best support fellow community members, I know that's kind of what we signed up for as City Council. But we appreciate what you and the other folks in your office do. Thank you.
Well put. With that, we'll go to our next proclamation, which is in recognition of and to celebrate Diversity Month. And I believe we have a video for this one. Would you like to do that before or after the proclamation is read?
The video speaks to both of the proclamations, so perhaps read and then we'll show the video.
Let's do both of the next proclamations then. And I don't believe we have anyone receiving this. And Councilmember Hanson Romero, could you please read the proclamation?
Just do it from here. So this proclamation is in recognition of Celebrate Diversity Month. Whereas Celebrate Diversity Month, better put on my glasses. Whereas Celebrate Diversity Month was initiated in 2004 and takes place every year in April, and whereas Celebrate Diversity Month recognizes and honors the diversity of the world around us, and whereas it is a time to recognize and understand our differences, be it gender, race, ethnicity, faith, sexual orientation, and other factors, while honoring the common essence of humanity. And whereas by appreciating our similarities and differences, the month aims to get people to foster a deeper understanding of others, regardless of who they are, what they are, or how they live. And whereas the goal of the celebrations is to address the growing multiculturalism taking place in global societies as a way to further understand and handle it sensibly, highlighting the urgency of understanding other cultures to ensure a better world. And whereas celebrating diversity is to respect and appreciate everyone's uniqueness to create a safe, positive world where differences can be tolerated, acknowledged, and encouraged. Now, therefore, the Albany City Council does hereby proclaim April 2023 as Celebrate Diversity Month in Albany. We encourage the Albany community to celebrate diversity by gaining new perspectives on the lives of others to educate and foster a more tolerant society.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment on this? Okay. Then, unless any council members have anything to say, we will go right to our last proclamation in recognition of National Arab American Heritage Month. And Councilmember Jordan, will you please read that?
Do we have somebody that's going to?
We do not, to my knowledge. So you can do it from here or there.
Okay, I'll do it from here then. In recognition of National Arab American Heritage Month, April 2023, whereas for over a century, Arab Americans have been making valuable contributions to virtually every aspect of American society in medicine, law, business, education, technology, government, military service, culture. And whereas since migrating to America, people of Arab descent have shared their rich culture and traditions with neighbors and friends, while also setting fine examples of model citizens and public servants. And whereas they brought with them to America their resilient family values, strong work ethic, dedication to education, and diversity in faith and creed that have added strength to our great democracy. And whereas Arab Americans have also enriched our society by sharing in the entrepreneurial American spirit that makes our nation free and prosperous. And whereas the history of Arab Americans in the U.S. remains neglected or defaced by misconceptions, bigotry, and anti-Arab hate in the forms of crimes and speech. And whereas Arab American issues such as civil rights abuses, harmful stereotyping, and bullying must be combated in the forms of education and awareness. And whereas they join all Americans in the desire to see a peaceful and diverse society where every individual is treated equally and feels safe. And whereas the incredible contributions and heritage of Arab Americans have helped us build a better nation, and now, therefore, the Albany City Council does hereby proclaim April 2023 as National Arab American Heritage Month. We acknowledge the contributions of Arab Americans in our community and encourage the Albany community to learn about the contributions Arab Americans have made to society.
Thank you. Any comments from council? Any public comment?
Good evening, this is Jeremiah here. I'm just wondering why city staff or City of Albany could not find someone, an Arab person of descent, to come in and accept this proclamation. I mean, I'm just really surprised there's not one person in Albany here to accept this. I'm just wondering what kind of outreach is involved to find someone to accept the proclamation. I know there's plenty of businesses on Solano that owners and employees are Arab. I'm really surprised that the City of Albany couldn't find a student at the high school to accept this proclamation. I just really encourage the City of Albany to find people to accept proclamations if one's being given. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Is that the only one? Okay. We now are going to see a video that our staff has prepared in recognition of Diversity Month and Arab American Heritage Month that was included on the city's website and in our social media for this month. It aims to uplift and recognize our efforts at diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I'm excited to see it.
We are Albany.
We stand for all our community.
We welcome all.
The City of Albany reaffirms that we are a community that celebrates and welcomes diversity.
Although we are not without occasional issues,
we continue to focus on ways to further inclusivity and awareness.
We pride ourselves on being a place which respects and welcomes people and families of all backgrounds and nationalities.
We are committed to recognizing the dignity and civil rights of all community members.
Join with us in furthering our efforts to lead as a city.
Take action.
Help serve.
and show what it means to be a city that welcomes all to Albany.
We are Albany.
Thank you, staff, for putting that together and for getting all of these on our agenda. Any comments from anyone on council before we move on? With that, I believe that brings us to the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to start by reflecting on our most recent e-news. As a reminder, folks can sign up for e-news by going to our website through a few simple clicks. In particular, interestingly, first, the Community Expo coming up April 29th, right around the corner. This is an opportunity for individuals to learn just about anything about Albany in terms of how to get engaged, what your local city services are, as well as almost all nonprofit groups and many other organizations that will be at the event. So please take advantage of this opportunity. It will be April 29th at our community center, both inside and outside of the community center, and a really great expanding event over time with food vendors, lots of different entertainment as well for all ages, and of course information. In addition, this year, as our staff always looks to expand and improve on opportunities such as this, there will be a number of presentations in the downstairs area of the community center. One in particular will be on, a little out of order here, on understanding the end of the eviction moratorium, which is very timely for this event in terms of the date. This is a special Community Expo presentation at 10:15. Understanding the End of the Eviction Moratorium, facilitated by Samantha Beckett, co-director of the housing team of Centro Legal. She will be accompanied by David Hall, managing attorney of the same agency. In partnership with the county, the agency provides legal services and financial housing programs. Also, interestingly, Habitat Day on Cerrito Creek. I think we have some people here that led this event. Special thanks to Friends of Five Creeks in partnership with the city for the event that occurred on April 15th along Cerrito Creek at the foot of Albany Hill. And also, as mentioned during your study session, the sugar-sweetened beverage tax funded, supported event of Move and Groove. The event will take place this Sunday, April 23rd. And I can't forget that one of our Solano Strollish events happened this past Sunday, April 16th. Seemed like a really good turnout along the avenue, a lot of entertainment and people enjoying the avenue. An update regarding several items in Public Works Department. We had a big belly cleaning, that's the trash containers along our commercial areas. Canology is the service provider under city contract. They're on site doing the quarterly cleaning of these containers. It's a fascinating service where they do it all internally within this outfitted vehicle, and really is a benefit for the visual appearance of the containers that, as trash containers, can get dirty from time to time. You've probably noticed that there's some construction along Solano, Masonic, Marin, and other areas in town. While it probably feels like these projects are growing on one another, I want to remind folks that some of the projects are utility projects, some are city-initiated projects. We try and match these up to the maximum degree we can. The storms this year slowed everything down, so we're still trying to regroup from that. But I can attest that our staff has done a significant job in trying to adapt and speed up the work whenever possible. We had the unfortunate failure of a signal at Solano and Masonic. It's basically aged out without the ability to be repaired at this time. So we're speeding up the intersection improvement, signal replacement at this location, which is a planned project. Just the light chose to fail a little too early for us. So in the meantime, you will see human signals, so to speak, out at the intersection helping with traffic because it's a very busy intersection, as well as our children in crossing the intersections to school. So we've done that in the interim to help ensure safety and use of the intersection to the degree practicable. Marin paving, phase 1, we're getting there. We're on the final steps here in an effort to minimize the extensive paving work that is anticipated. The likelihood is that we will be doing a 3-day project over the course of a weekend and need to close a certain section of Marin. In advance of doing that, we will do heavy outreach, both in written form, social media form, and in person with the residents in the area and the community at large. This work is intended for early May, date to be confirmed, but we will provide additional details as they're available. Another reason for doing it in this shortened time frame is to ensure that the students are able to get to school during the school week. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from council? Not. We will go to public comment for questions. If anyone attending would like to ask a question or comment about the city manager's report, please press the raise your hand button or come to the front. You will have 1 minute. If you're on the phone, please raise your hand by pressing *9. This is for questions and comments on the city manager's report only. Comments for matters not on the agenda, it will come next. In this and all comments and questions during the meeting, please address the council and not other attendees and respect each person that has spoken. We want everyone to feel comfortable speaking and not be intimidated by others' comments or reactions.
Yeah, hi, good evening, it's Jeremiah. Thank you, City Manager, for your report. I was just wondering, I haven't heard in your report for almost a couple months about the Mercy Brown Bag program or the community food program at the community center. I think it's the first Friday of every month. I was just wondering if those are still happening. And if they are, I was wondering if you could include that in your report so that the community members know the services that are available to them regarding food and security. The Mercy Brown Bag program at the senior center and the I guess, community center food program. Please, thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Just had a quick comment. I want to thank staff for the striping refresh on the streets. Noticed some fresh striping on the way over here, riding my bike. So appreciate that. That detail doesn't go unnoticed.
And the city manager, I don't know if you have, I assume those programs are still going and they haven't been included for because they're simply ongoing. but
Ongoing,
I don't know if you have anything to add.
noted, and I'll make sure to get some information back. If I were to report on every city program we do, we would be here a long time. So I try and pick and choose, but I've noted that, and we'll make sure to include something in the future.
Thank you. That's what I figured. With that brings us to Good of the City. This is for attendees to provide the council comments, information, and questions on items that are not on our agenda. Please raise your hands now, or by phone, press *9. By state law known as the Brown Act, the council cannot discuss items that are not on the agenda except under extraordinary circumstances. Rather, those items can be referred to future agendas or to staff for comment.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Ryan Lau, External Affairs Representative at AC Transit. Just wanted to call in today to encourage you to take a very important survey that AC Transit released today, which seeks input about our the service that we provide. We also want to encourage you to sort of disseminate that amongst your community members and encourage them to take the survey as well. As you probably know, the pandemic has drastically changed how people move around the East Bay. The shifts in travel patterns have severely impacted our budget and has also affected the level of service that AC Transit can afford to put on the road. So we're actually doing a top to bottom analysis of our entire system, and it's critical that we make sure that we hear from our community so that we know what they need. So AC Transit will be using these survey results to create a service that better matches people's transportation needs in the wake of the pandemic. Later this week, I believe on Wednesday, I'll be forwarding along an email with more information that you can share with your communities in newsletters, social media, and other means. Throughout most of May, you can expect to see AC Transit staff at bus stops asking riders to complete the survey. Community input will help us understand bus riders' needs so that we can develop options about how to update our service. And then in fall, we'll be seeking additional community input on the proposed service changes. Our goal is to have a new service in place by August 2024. Thank you for your time. For additional information or to take the survey, please visit actransit.org/realign, spelled REALIGN. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. This is Jeremiah. Yeah, AC Transit, that's great. I was wondering, I spoke to an AC Transit bus driver on the 18, the route goes up Solano, and the bus driver says that AC Transit has not changed their schedule, and AC Transit is unaware that Albany has reduced the speed limit on Solano to 20 miles an hour. So the bus drivers are still thinking it's 25, and that's why buses are going so fast. So I was hoping the AC Transit person that's here, can you please get in contact with the city so you guys can work on changing your schedule for the AC Transit up and down Solano to reduce the speed to 20 miles an hour, please. That'd be great for your cooperation. Also, let's see here. I was wondering when the city is going to have dinner with Albany. I'm not 100% sure if that's Solano Avenue Association. Jennifer, I know, I was wondering if maybe we can get some feedback from Councilmember Jennifer about dinner with Albany, if that's going to happen sooner or later, if that's Solano Avenue Association, if it's the city. It'd be nice to hear from the city when dinner with Albany is going to happen. Again, I know that was great. I think the last time we had that was 4 or 5 years ago, but I think it's supposed to be biennial. I can't pronounce that word correctly, but it's once every 2 years. So looking forward to seeing that. Let's see, what else? Let's see. Every Thursday on Solano from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock, I run a community food program. It's called Elaine's Love, and it's a free laundry service for the community. I limit people to 2 loads maximum, That's 2 loads washer, 2 loads for the dryer, because it comes out of my pocket. But also, I'm an extension of the Berkeley Food Network. I'm a mobile food pantry, and so every week on Thursday, I serve over 150 community members and bring about 400 pounds of food to Solano Avenue. It's a really great resource. There's a lot of regulars, and I'm so thankful for all the middle school volunteers that come every week, even during Easter break, spring break holiday. There's still middle school volunteers that came out and want to serve the community. If you're interested, please swing by 2 to 4 on Thursday on Solano and Talbot in front of Solano Clinic Center. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for your comment. Nicole, I don't know if you have a response to the question of when might dinner with Albany happen again?
I don't have a response for that right now.
That's what I figured. I think that's it. Besides encouraging everybody to take the AC Transit survey. On to the consent calendar. Items on the consent calendar are considered routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion. By approval of the consent calendar, the staff recommendations will be adopted unless otherwise modified, and there will be no separate discussion of these items unless a member of this council or a member of the audience requests that discussion. Are there any council members that wish to pull an item for discussion? Over here. None? Any from the audience?
Jeremiah here, 7.5 and also 7.8, please. Both of them, just wanting some more explanation.
One second. I'm attempting to get all of them pulled and then go to separate discussion of each. So wait just a moment. Thank you. Any more from any members of the audience?
Yes, the clerk has our bar. That's consent item. What it is
7.7. I have 7.5, 7.7, and 7.8. Is that all of them? Seeing no one, I'm going to assume so. We will start with 7.5 then. This is a support letter for multi-year funding package for public transit agencies. And can the member of the public please make their comment? Go right ahead.
Yeah, Jeremiah here. I was just wondering what 7.5 is, maybe a little explanation of what it is. It looks great. I mean, I'm just really more interested in what it entails and, you know, kind of what it's about. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Jordan.
Yeah, thank you. So thank you for the public comment. I was contacted. I'm actually in discussion with Berkeley Councilmember Rigel Robinson about various transportation issues, and his staff shared a letter from, I think it's called Seamless Bay Area, which is an organization that is seeking to have some of the transit agencies consolidate and better coordinate between them, public transit agencies. Specifically, this letter regards ongoing negotiations and consideration in our state legislature regarding whether or not to provide funding for public transit agencies to be able to continue operating at their current level of service beyond the time at which the funding from the federal government that came through to compensate for a reduction in ridership due to the pandemic. My understanding is that funding will essentially be burned out in early 2025. And so unless the state steps up to provide more funding, in all likelihood, public transit services will be cut really quite dramatically. To give you a feel for that, BART has the highest what's called fare box recovery of all the transit agencies. Fare box recovery is the percentage of its operating budget that comes from payment of fares. Historically, it's been about 60%. In comparison, the only other one I know is the one on the very low side, which is the Santa Clara Valley Transit Authority, which has a fare box recovery of 10%. And so the other 40% for BART and 90% for Santa Clara VTA is from other funding sources. For instance, there's a property tax to fund AC Transit's operations in our area. And BART is currently operating at about 40% of its pre-pandemic ridership. So you can see the size of the shortfall that will occur if it doesn't get funding from other sources. So this is a letter to encourage the state legislature to provide funding to keep transit services going, but at the same time also use the opportunity of this moment to condition that funding on the transit agencies coming together to realize greater efficiencies in their operation by better coordinating and potentially even consolidating agencies to reduce overhead.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion from council? Seeing none, that will take us to item 7.7.
Good evening. It's wonderful to be here in person and to see some of you I haven't even met. I'm Susan Schwartz, head of Friends of Five Creeks, an all-volunteer creek and watershed group founded in Albany 27 years ago. 25 years ago, the late Judy Lieberman, who shortly after became your assistant city manager, brought UC Berkeley, Albany, the city of Berkeley, creek advocates, and sports teams together to cooperate in a complicated project. The goals were to protect a rebuilt University Village against floods, create much-needed sports fields, and let people of all ages enjoy a revitalized Codornices Creek, which Friends of Five Creeks was soon to discover is our area's only trout stream. Soon after those meetings began, our volunteers built a rough trail downstream from 10th Street. It joined a dirt trail built by earlier volunteers who had brought the creek out of its World War II burial above 8th Street, and now for the first time, someone could walk from one street to another alongside the creek. You could not do it before that. We wanted people to savor the many benefits and joys of sharing nature with wildlife along a peaceful stream close to home. In older cities, this is a rare treasure. Without counting chickens before they hatch, we don't know how bids will come in. Completing the Creekside Trail from San Pablo downstream will basically realize this 25-year-old vision. Nothing is ever finished, but this is it. It has been much harder than any of us naively thought, as Jeff Bond, who was representing the university at the time, will remember. Albany should be proud to take most of the credit for creating this civic and natural jewel, which I believe will be increasingly valued as climate change advances. And I wish Judy could have been here to see it. Thank you all.
Thank you for your comment. Do you have any further comment on this item? Okay. I believe that brings us to item 7.8. The public commenter can please make their comment on this item.
Yeah, Jeremiah here again. Similar, just wondering more explanation on what this is regarding. I see the word opiate, wondering if it has anything to do with fentanyl. Just a little bit more explanation, please, on what this agenda item is regarding.
Thank you. I'll turn it over to city staff.
Thank you, Mayor. As provided in the staff report, this relates to litigation associated with the opioid epidemic and the role of various entities in that epidemic. So it is 5 different manufacturers or distributors, pharmaceutical distributors, and it is a settlement that many states in the United States as well as individual cities are participating in, and the request is to authorize me to allow the city to participate in the settlement, which could result in up to $145,000 for the city to use for opioid-related issues over the next 15 years. And this would also allow me to participate should there be additional settlements going forward. I anticipate there'll be more in talking to the Attorney General's office, that there'll be additional ones coming forward so that we can just keep on track. Some of these come very quickly in terms of the time response to agree to the settlements.
Great, thank you. And to try and summarize, it's similar to us signing on to essentially a class action lawsuit of localities and states.
Exactly. We never sued these entities, but we are getting the ability to settle and and participate in the settlement amounts. And if we chose not to participate in the settlement amounts, the state would get less money, and our amount of money would go to the state.
Great, thank you.
If I could just comment on 7.7.
Sorry, please, go for it.
Yeah, sure. I just want to thank our Public Works Director and City Engineer for entertaining my questions. Thank you for doing that. And I want to thank Friends of Five Creeks, the city, Judy Lieberman for creating these spaces for our community. It's personal to myself because my wife and I met in the geology program at Berkeley, so as you can imagine, she enjoys the outdoors, but this is the only outdoors that she's able to get to at this time. So without that, she wouldn't have access to nature. So thank you very much.
Thank you. With that, I believe that is the end of any of our items that were pulled for separate discussion. So I will look for a motion to approve the consent calendar.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Thank you.
I will second.
It's been motioned and seconded. City Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Mayor Tiedemann,
Yes.
Councilmember Hanson Romero,
Yes.
Councilmember Jordan,
Yes.
Councilmember Lopez,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mickey. The motion carries.
Thank you. That brings us on to our first item of unfinished business, 10.1, which is the student and student-affiliated appointments to city advisory bodies. Can we please have staff's report?
Good evening, Council. This item brought before you is a follow-up from the direction of the March 20th Council meeting to establish policy regarding the appointment of student and student-affiliated members to the city advisory bodies. Advisory bodies including Arts Committee, Climate Action Committee, Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Commission, Policing Commission, the newly established Racial Inclusivity and Social Equity Commission, and Transportation Commission will be comprised of 7 members, all appointed by council. Besides the 5 members which are appointed by each of the council member, there will be 1 appointment made by council as a whole to be filled by high school students attending high school within the city of Albany. And 1 more member is an appointment also made by the city council as a whole to be filled by either a high school student attending a high school within the city of Albany or an adult affiliated with student at the school level within the city of Albany. We have ordinance 2023-02 here. This is for the first reading tonight, amending sections of the Albany Municipal Code related to the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Commission and Transportation Commission regarding these appointments. And for the rest of the advisory body that I mentioned above, the policy will be in effect if council adopts resolution 2023-21 tonight. And I'll be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
One clarifying question. So we list high school student attending a high school within the city of Albany. When phrased that way, does that include someone who is a high school student who is being homeschooled?
They're still a high school student. So
Okay.
usually homeschool student, my understanding is usually a homeschool student is still connected to a high school and they're still considered a high school student.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Didn't expect any questions. We've all seen this a couple times before. With that, we'll go to public comment.
Good evening, Jeremiah here. I was wondering if the high school student that's appointed is actually supposed to live in Albany, or can the city of Albany appoint a high school student that lives outside the city limits? So that's one question. And also, I noticed that when reading this, it says that city council as a whole, city council is appointing these positions as student representatives. I'm wondering, is this excluding the school board's decision-making or excluding the school board on having their 2 appointees no longer? Because I know in the past, the school district Board of Education, they were able to select members on their own. So I was just wondering the process there. Is the school district able to suggest the city council on who to appoint? Or I'm just wondering what's happening here. Is the school district out of the picture on making any decisions on who they would like to appoint? Or is this just strictly city council by itself? Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Hi, I'm Kim Trutain again, the Support Services Coordinator for Albany Unified School District. Our superintendent, Dr. Frank Wells, cannot be here tonight, but I'm conveying a message from him, which is we support the plan as defined here, with one appointment made by City Council as a whole to be filled with a high school student attending a high school within City of Albany, and another appointment made appointed as a whole either with another high school student or with an adult affiliated with students from a high school in Albany. The school district appreciates your attention to trying to elevate student voice in our community, and we feel like this is a very representative and a great solution. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom, in response to the questions, I think on the latter question, I think I can answer it, but someone correct me if I'm wrong, that this is not excluding the AOSD school board. They're still making a recommendation of who we're appointing, and it's just that the council is the body that is, for technical and procedural purposes, making the appointment, because it is a advisory body that advises the city council. So the school board will still be involved. And City Clerk, I don't know if you can speak. I think I know the answer, but I want to make sure if the student needs to live in Albany.
No, the student member and the student affiliated member do not need to be residents of City of Albany. The rest, they will have to comply with our, just like all the other advisory body members.
But they
don't need to be.
They don't need to be, just need to be a high school student attending a high school in the City of Albany.
Correct.
So they can be going to City of Albany High School, but not be a resident.
Correct.
Great, thank you. Any further discussion from council?
Yeah, I would just like to thank Dr. Trutain for carrying Dr. Wells' message. That's certainly encouraging to receive. And I'm wondering, I think there was some idea that these members would hopefully communicate back to the school district what is happening. And so as long as Dr. Trutain is here, and certainly not to put her on the spot of making a decision, no expectation of that, but one thought that came to mind would be if the school board could provide a space in its agenda for these members to report out to the school board what is going on, that would sort of formalize and make that communication happen, so that the school board is aware of, say, for instance, things that are going on in transportation in the city, because I know that sometimes can be an area of some surprise between the agencies. So again, not asking you to weigh in one way or another. I recognize that's not your job, but you're here, so I thought I'd put the idea on the table as long as you're here and we can talk about this as a whole all together.
Thank you. Yes, I don't have the authority to speak for the agenda committee, but we would certainly, whether in written form or possibly as an oral report, we would love to hear back. We also know that these are public meetings, and you might see more of me in the future as I can attend the committee and commission meetings and report back to the district also. Thank you.
Oh, great. Oh, that's encouraging to hear. Thank you. Yeah, good.
I'll just say thank you for your involvement and thank you for the school board's support on this. We've talked about it various times, but it's all been very valuable. Also, thank you to staff for getting this together and going through all the work to get us ready to make this change. This will require more outreach on our behalf, which I'm very much looking forward to helping with, but I really appreciate all of the time that's been put into figuring this out. With that, is there any other comments, or if not, a motion?
I have one really quick comment, and this is going to relate to being able to expand the outreach to this. I just want to bring up that the Albany Chamber of Commerce has been working with a student group at Albany High currently. Help me with the name of it. Miriam's. Yes, yes. So they are going to be hosting a mixer, first Wednesday of the month, mixer at the high school this next month. And this would be an excellent time to hopefully put this outreach to those students. I'll be attending, and I encourage any of my other fellow council members to also attend as well as city staff if they're available.
Yeah. Go ahead. Oh, I did not know.
I just want to express, sorry, John. I just want to express that I'm really excited that it's gotten to this stage and it's gotten here this quickly. Because I know oftentimes it can feel like things are quite laborious and takes a lot of back and forth. But to also have solid communication with the school district and vice versa, I think really speaks volume and really shows that we, as elected leaders and educational leaders and just adults in general in this community, could really showcase and highlight how to be solid role models, dope role models for young people in our community, because they're watching. They pay attention to what we do, even if we think they don't. Even if we're assuming, oh, they're not listening to what's going on in city council meetings, they're not interested. Some of them do, and it's kind of interesting. But I'm excited because now I can finally disseminate information to young people who have been asking how to get involved. I don't know if maybe something about me appeals to them, but I've had quite a number of young high school age students in the area ask, can I intern for you for city council? And I'm like, I don't know if there's anything there, but hold the brakes. We're gonna hit something really quick, and we'll hit that gas really fast. So I just want to express, similar to what Aaron had expressed in terms of gratitude, but also just major thanks to our fellow council members that were on the ad hoc committee that made that happen. And just seeing it through, that the communication didn't break down, because it is very easy for the communication to break down, especially when there's so much going on at the city level and so much going on at the school level. And so I'm just very appreciative that you all made sure that was facilitated and allowed city staff to help bring this all together.
Apologies, Councilmember Lopez. I was not sure that, I didn't know if Aaron was pointing at you or me, and he was pointing at you. I truly appreciate all the effort staff has gone through, both on AUSD side and on the city side. The work that council members Hanson Romero and Jordan did in preparing and thinking about this. I will say, as I reviewed the work that you all did, and in the discussions of the AUSD, I realized that this was I am excited how far we have gotten, and I recognize that what we are proposing tonight is the first attempt at trying to build a stronger relationship with AUSD. And I would hope that in about a year's time, we can reevaluate how well is the youth voice being heard, and how well are we able to communicate back and forth with AUSD, so that if there are changes that we would consider, we would prepare them ahead of the seating of new commissioners and committee members in 2024/2025, right? So end of 24, beginning of 25. And so I am really excited about this. I also agree with all the comments about really appreciative of being able to get the youth vote on this. I think a lot has to be pushed back also on the previous council where this was a primary element in their strategic plan. And I think it is really wonderful to be able to implement that, to help implement that. So.
Add one more thing. You said something, John, that just kind of spoke to me about how this is the process. This is the start of something. And we probably are going to see another iteration some years down the road, particularly from youth input as they get more involved. But it does make me wonder if city or school district might have the capacity to do like entrance and exit surveys for the youth that do end up becoming involved. Because I think that can also give us a good metric on how successful their level of engagement feels for them. That's part of listening to them. I don't know if we have that bandwidth right now, but I'm just shooting that into the void that maybe that's something city and school district can also collaborate on. Just so it's just another piece in the equation that the students know that we are listening and we do want to know what's on their mind, even as they migrate out. And I'll just end it on this note. Getting young people involved causes their friends to tag along sometimes. And I can speak from personal experience, even though like when I was in high school and I wasn't the most polite child back then, I always found myself in and out of trouble in school, even when I wasn't in school. But someone dragged me along one time to an accreditation meeting when the accreditation group was coming, and I just thought like, wow, like some of the students get to have input and share what they want to say. And that led to me ended up being a student member on the accreditation committee, even though I barely went to school. But I was there to give input, and they actually valued it because they were really interested in knowing why I did not want to come to school, like why I'd cut class. Why was it that my GPA fell to a 1.7? Why was this young person not able to apply for college? And so that really gave the accreditation committee a really unique perspective on what's going on. And I just share that brief example of what happened to me because we may see that. And, young people bringing in other high school students who maybe don't feel like they're able to get involved because they think of these weird social constructs around what it means to be successful, that grades define them, our extracurriculars define them. And I just want to share out, too, as we're making this happen, as we bring young people into our committees and commissions across the city, we remind them that they are very valued. And if you want to step up, step up.
I'll just add one more thing, just because I know we've talked AUSD a lot, but I just want to remember that what we're doing here is even that much more encouraging because it's not just AUSD, but we're also reaching out to the other high schools that are within our area to give ourselves an even broader sense of perspective from all across, whether it be AUSD or Tilden Prep or St. Mary's, or independent studies, that we're really using this to broaden that scope. And so I'm really encouraged by that. So I want to thank everyone as well.
Any more? It's okay if there is.
I will say one thing. So I asked a question earlier about the language about a high school student attending a high school in Albany. And I asked it very purposely because I know in all of our conversations we have been very explicit that it should include those who are independent study or homeschool. While I don't believe there's a need to change the language in the ordinance that we are passing tonight, I do want to emphasize that the language that is sent out to the community needs to emphasize homeschool and independent study, because for those who do not feel like they are part of an institution of a high school, it could be very, they may not feel like they have the right to apply. They may not feel like they don't have the cultural norms where everyone thinks everyone goes to high school. And so I am very conscious of that. I have 3 young adults, I'll call them young adults in my house right now, who all had very unorthodox high school experiences. And I want to make sure everything we have talked about is being more inclusive and making sure that all voices are heard in the youth. And I want to make sure that we, in our advertising, are very clear about that. So there's a technical nuance that if you're independent study or home study, you are technically associated with a high school, but I'm willing to bet most of those students who are being homeschooled do not think of themselves as attending or being affiliated with Albany High School. Or Berkeley High School, well, yeah, sorry.
Which is a good note to have. Thank you. With that, I think we need 2 separate motions because we have a resolution and an ordinance. So if there's no further commentary, I will look for a movement on the resolution 2023-21.
I'll make a motion on that resolution, but I won't repeat the number.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. City Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Councilmember Lopez,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mickey,
Yes.
Mayor Tiedemann,
Yes.
Councilmember Hanson Romero,
Yes.
Councilmember Jordan.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you. Is there a motion on the ordinance?
I will make a motion, and I'll read the ordinance number this time, 2023-02.
That was a test to see if you had it pulled up. Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been motioned and seconded. City Clerk, can we please call the roll?
Councilmember Jordan,
Yes.
Councilmember Lopez,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mickey,
Yes.
Mayor Tiedemann,
Yes.
and Councilmember Hanson Romero.
Yes.
Ordinance passed first reading and waived the first reading.
Yes.
I do have a comment, which is, and I know this is, I guess, first reading. The Policing Commission hasn't met yet, and my understanding from staff is that currently its first meeting is scheduled for, I don't know, 3rd Thursday or thereabouts of May. So it's rather short order, but I think it would be best if this body can appoint a student by then. But that is intention with providing the school board time to do its work. So I don't quite know how to resolve that. I will offer that there is a student who has applied. They have been recommended to me because of I previously served on the board of the League of Voters, Berkeley, Albany, Emeryville, and they've been an intern with the league for, I don't know, the last year or 8 months, and the president has recommended them for appointment to this body. So I am inclined in that direction, but I'm also sensitive to, I don't want to short circuit the process. So I don't know what to do in this situation. I mean, not having the student who will be appointed in the seat for the first meeting of that body seems disrespectful and counterproductive. But on the other hand, I don't want to do anything that makes the relationship with any of the schools difficult. So I just put it out there. I'm kind of in a quandary as to how to approach this.
City Attorney, are we on track on agenda? No. Okay, that's what I figured.
You were right in your line of questioning, Mayor.
So maybe something to mention in future agenda items or something like that. Okay, that brings us to item 10.2, the City Council Strategic Plan for 2023 to 2025. And I just want to make a process note and warn them so there's not confusion over who's speaking, but it's because Councilmember Lopez was not able to join us at our meeting last time. Once we get to comment, I'm going to start with you to see if you have any issues or anything you want to note here, because you haven't gotten a chance to publicly speak on it. With that, could we please have staff's report?
Thank you, Mayor. We'll do a team approach here. Before you is the summary and final draft of your work recently regarding your strategic plan for the next 2-ish years. You see that we've proposed a working date for the overall implementation of the plan. I want to reiterate that the plan speaks to the high-level goals and objectives of the council, providing policy direction to staff to achieve these to the maximum extent practicable. We can do through both special projects and programs, as well as integrating them into our day-to-day core services. And I underscore that because I don't know that we've done the most effective job at reporting that to the council in previous years. And we are very much committed through both words and images that I'm really excited about to better document that to the council and the community over time on a living reportable through an active website that will be heavily managed in a reasonable way. Hopefully we'll be able to assimilate it fairly well into our processes. So I need a visual. Thank you. Credit to Isabel, our assistant city manager, for managing all of the visuals that you see with regard to the refreshed strategic plan, including this capture of all of your goals with art and words, but really the meaning behind seeing and interpreting what these mean in your particular perspective and speaking to the goals of the council as you forward the community's expectations and goals. We will use these in a number of different ways going forward for branding purposes, including on your staff reports when applicable, as well as on this website here, this webpage on our city webpage. And if you can scroll, you'll see that each goal is listed, and I'm going to let Isabel explain how this will be built up.
Oh, sure. So as you can see, each goal has an image associated with the goal. And then as items come before council that relate to any of the goals and objectives included in the strategic plan, we will list those items by linking them from staff reports and that have happened on your agendas under each goal. So we're still kind of figuring out visually where they're going to go, but they're probably going to go right under the objectives table, just above the guiding city plans section. So that we will do for each goal every time there's a staff report that relates to any of the goals that you have in your strategic plan. The other component also is that each of the goals have their own images, but we will have like some sort of seal or image, probably something very similar to the rectangle image, but a little bit simplified to put on the staff reports. So that will, right from the start, let people know that this staff report, this item relates to your strategic plan.
So this speaks to the umbrella approach that we're trying to achieve in accomplishing the goals at that high level through a number of different programs and services, either ongoing or to be established, including some expressed in your objectives directly. You will see that coming from your strategic planning session into this final draft document, some of the wording has been nuanced to some degree. I conferred with our executive team of department heads for assistance with that, with their interest being to make sure that it was clarified as effectively as it could be in terms of knowing how that goal or objective could be implemented and realized. So if you have any questions on any wording changes, we're happy to go through that. We added the guiding plan section as an attempt to help, again, depict when there are policy level documents that assist with the implementation of the goal or potentially the objectives. This should not be an exhaustive listing, and as you know, we have a few more plans in the mix that haven't necessarily been adopted by the council yet. So again, this may be adapted over time as we ebb and flow with our guiding plans, but it's a starting point to house some of that information as well. And that concludes our report. Happy to answer any questions or additional feedback.
Well, thank you all very much for your work on this, and especially beautifying it and making it presentable, but also making it, really accessible on the website, including that, link to our plans and everything. It's also impressive to take a fairly scattered discussion that we had and translate into something that reads very well. So much appreciated. Are there any questions from council? Okay, then we'll go to public comment. Then we will go to council discussion. We'll start with Councilmember Lopez, if you have anything. You could say that we all did a fantastic job and you have no comments, but I doubt that's going to happen.
Surprisingly, fantastic job. No comment. No, I did do a seep through earlier. Just going through it right now during the report to see if there's anything that just catches my eye. But I can say the goals and the objectives that you all have outlined and collaboratively come up with are definitely things that are feasible for our 2023-2025 plan, strategic plan. And I look forward to it. I look forward to working with city staff, working with our commissioners and committee members in our community to really see all this through.
Any other comments?
I have just a couple of comments. First of all, I just want to say thank you to you guys. You really I really feel like we were really heard, we were really listened to, and I think that that's huge. And I love the way it's broken down with the symbol per for each one of them. And then I know I had mentioned and asked in past about kind of having like a trouble ticket kind of thing, being able to see where that is going. And I see that that's really connected, that piece there, which I really appreciate, because it also, helps our community too in the transparency of things, and really see what our goals and objectives were and how our city staff is helping us achieve these goals for our community as a whole. And so I think that it's really amazing that the way that this is put together. I think you did an excellent job, and thank you so much.
Yeah, I didn't know about the webpage. Oh, thank you. I didn't know about the webpage. That's very exciting, and sort of following on the communication bent that I think led to the construction updates, or that same idea, more interactive, more alive. Really appreciate that. I did have one change in wording that I wanted to put forward, which is under the promote streets, et cetera, goal. It currently says objective data on traffic calming, and my intention with putting that forward was that it would be objective data to prioritize traffic calming, so that these surveys would be done so that we can better prioritize on an objective basis where traffic calming should occur. Because right now it's upon request, and having anything upon request like that can be a source of inequity. So if the council's amenable to that, and I have a few other items. The city staff, perhaps even marginally known to unknown by the council, has been pursuing an update of the development impact fees. So these are various fees that are paid by developers to compensate the city for upgrading infrastructure that is needed to be upgraded to support the project. And so city staff has been pursuing that. And so under my practice of, I'd like to have in the strategic plan these non-regular activities the staff is pursuing, so that when staff succeeds, it's recognized. So I would suggest adding update development impact fees to the increased revenue goal. On the public safety goal, something that staff is working on, and I would presume is not far off, but again, in the spirit of making sure that we track it and give credit when it's completed, and know that it's completed, to add adopt mandatory seismic retrofit ordinance. So that's a carryover from the prior strategic plan, which is no criticism that it didn't get completed. It's a complicated item. And then finally, I've gotten some indication that the current parking enforcement strategy of marking tires may not be the best, and it's certainly not the current enforcement strategy that a lot of cities are using, or technology. They're using automated license plate readers. And so I think there's a nexus with increased revenue there, both revenue in the terms of parking fines, but that's not really the goal. The goal is to make sure that the parking spaces that are supposed to turn over the way they're supposed to turn over to support economic activity. So in the increased revenue goal, I recommend adding assess, switch to license plate readers for parking limit enforcement. So those are my 4 suggestions, and I can put those in a motion if the council is interested in those.
I'm curious if those are falling below the water line are some of those things already proposed to be managed already through city staff?
So I can say another couple words. I mean, the development impact fees, the reason I think these are above the water line is I started thinking about this with the colloquially referred to Albany Bowl project.
Mm-hmm.
It was actually brought up on News for Albany. It was a comment by former Mayor Robert Lieber that triggered me to look at this, and I went on the city's website and saw that those fees, they may have been updated at some time, but the master fee schedules are posted back to, I think, 2009, and it's been the same since 2009. And so I raised it to the staff and said, well, obviously it costs more to build this infrastructure now than it did then. And so the reason I'm going into this history is it's to me, it's above the water line because it only happens periodically. We could put it below the water line by saying, and maybe this is what we should do, is once it gets updated and I don't know what the tool would be, if it'd be an ordinance or, I don't know what the mechanism is, but we would add in a CPI adjustment because that doesn't exist now, and then it would be below the water line, which has happened with regularity. But at this point in time, it hasn't happened for a long time, so I see it as sort of an extraordinary lift at this time. And let's see on the other ones. Same with switching to license plate readers from the chalking operation.
I like that idea. I'm just wondering if these are things.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, happy to speak to that.
Yeah.
I think they're all fitting. They do this. They dip a little above and below, but I appreciate housing them somewhere so we don't lose track of them. And I will completely agree that while some of these should have probably been a scheduled update, development impact fees, our itty-bitty community development department had other obligations. So while it is something mainstream that would have eventually been addressed, it was addressed in a more timely fashion because we heard of the need. So happy to keep that in there, trailing and making sure that the seismic retrofit is tracked. Perfect, fits well. With the license plate reader, because there may be other technology and some evolution there,
Okay.
if you would accept something like assess potential opportunities to utilize newer technology for parking enforcement, just so we're a little.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks.
And then I missed it. We both missed it.
Okay.
For your first change on the traffic surveys.
Yeah, so it was to change it so currently it says objective data on traffic calming.
Uh-huh.
And the proposed change is to objective data to prioritize traffic calming.
Got it.
So it's not data collected like before and after traffic calming has occurred. It's data collected to determine where should we spend the limited resources we have to calm motorist traffic.
Any other comments? Or do you want to make a motion?
I will move that the city council adopt the strategic plan as presented to it in draft form with the adjustments and additions I've just described. I can go over.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. City Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Vice Mayor Mickey,
Yes.
Mayor Tiedemann,
Yes.
Councilmember Hanson Romero,
Yes.
Councilmember Jordan,
Yes.
and Councilmember Lopez.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Very excited to have a new strategic plan.
Wow. That was so easy. Really?
Not all cities have it this easy. That brings us to council subcommittee reports and reports on appointed representation. I will start from left to right. Vice Mayor Mickey?
If I can just comment on the last agenda item. I just want to really thank staff because I think part of the reason why it was so easy was because we had a work session, because it was actually facilitated. The meeting was facilitated because I definitely took the meeting sideways very quickly. So, and I absolutely noted that the facilitator did a wonderful job of walking us back to what we were supposed to be doing. So I just wanted to acknowledge staff on that.
Really noted, and thank you for doing so.
Report backs. I did want to report back on the East Bay Sports Field Recreation Authority, JPA. We had a meeting, I should have the date in front of me, 2 weeks ago. It was really incredible. They did a great job because there are a whole series of new, I don't know if our board members, community members. So they talked a lot about the history. It was really wonderful to hear about. One of the things that I'd like to convey back to the council is they will be extending water and sewer out to the fields. When they had explored it in prior years, it was a $1.3 million job. By working with Caltrans as the Gilman interchanges were being implemented, it turned into a $300,000 project. And I bring that up for reference in terms of the desire of the community to bring water to the Albany bulb. The length of pipe that would be needed to the Albany bulb is longer than the length of pipe that was needed at Gilman. So just as a frame of reference, the $1.3 million was also 3 or 4 years ago was the estimate, so that number is also likely higher. The other wonderful news is they have funds to build an additional soccer field, to build restrooms, to build a series of pickleball courts. So all the pickleball fans out there, they are seeking additional funds to improve the parking lot and build an additional restroom on the south side parking lot. And those funds would also be used for a few other things. And they will be looking for letters of support from the 5 member communities. They are working on that letter template. So that is something that will be coming to us. But really thrilled. I thought it was going to be a little bit of a quiet board that I was joining, but actually it was quite exciting because they happen to be at the stage where a lot of things have aligned and they have construction projects that they're exploring. So also answered a lot of questions. Like I always wondered, why don't they have water down there and why can't we park closer to the water? And a lot of that has to do with the fact that the fields are actually on land that is leased from East Bay Parks. And so East Bay Parks has very specific requirements, so.
Thank you for that report. Councilmember Lopez.
Very little on my end. Giltrack Farm group has not yet had an additional meeting. I can share, though, that Giltrack Farm is planning to have an Earth Day celebration event on the 23rd, this weekend, and an additional event potentially on the 30th. The Alameda County Mosquito Abatement District, they did have a meeting last week. Unfortunately, due to personal medical family situations, I could not attend. But when I get briefed on meeting happenings, I'll be sure to report any updates on them.
Thank you. go briefly. There was not a mayor's conference meeting this month because the return to normal non-COVID affected Brown Act seemingly took the mayor's conference a little by surprise. So we did not have a physical place to have one, but we will have physical ones for the rest of the year. We did have an EBC executive board meeting on April 5th with our old chair, who used to be the member from the City Council of Hayward and is now the member of the Board of Supervisors for Alameda County, which is great to have her make that change and still be our chair for EBCE. I'll cover that very in brief because I think all of these things are going to be discussed at the next EBC proper meeting this Wednesday, but we discussed some of the new branding efforts that is going on to bring Stockton on board, a new heavy-duty vehicle charging program, and an overview of our emissions factor, and I'll give some more detail on those next time.
I'm very excited to hear about the Gilman Sports Fields 2.0. City Clerk, I sent you something in the midst of the meeting by email. I don't know if you'll be able to bring it up. I'll talk about something else in the meantime, and if you can't, I fully understand because that's not a good practice on my part. I attended the Planning, Programs, and Legislative Committee of the Alameda County Transportation Commission, and it has taken a position of support for two bills that have been submitted to basically bring back the pandemic era allowance for remote attendance of multi-jurisdictional meetings, recognizing that, you know, it's not exactly fair for somebody from Livermore to have to travel to downtown Oakland, less of an issue for us. But on the other hand, for Councilmember Lopez, you know, to travel from here to Hayward, which is where the Mosquito Abatement District is, and it's not near BART station. I confirmed that during my tenure, so hopefully those will pass. And I also brought up the local road safety plan, what came up during our prior conversation, that staff indicated that there might be a movement or interest for the region and the state to start requiring jurisdictions to have those plans in order to be eligible for various grants. And so I brought up that I found there were statistical methodological problems with how those things are required to be constructed. And I was pleasantly surprised that the chair of the committee asked staff to look into that and bring us back a report. So that's proceeding. I attended the Albany County Library Advisory Commission meeting in Dublin. Really beautiful facility and wonderful to be there in person. One of the items was intellectual freedom. And thank you, City Clerk, for getting this up. And so in the context of intellectual freedom, they showed some slides, and this is the one I thought was most impactful. So this is the number of book titles that have been challenged, meaning, you know, requested to be banned nationwide. And so each of these titles could be requested to be banned in one system or in 1,000 library systems. In all likelihood, it's more than one library system because there's another slide that I'm not showing that has the number of individual requests that were submitted for bans. And if my recollection is correct, if I recall correctly, most of those individual requests were for more than 100 titles to be banned. So, you know, a whole list. So you can see it's a pretty stupendous, even frightening increase in requests. And this is probably an undercount. This is what the American Library Association is aware of. And so I just thought I would share that. The head librarian says there have been no requests in our county, so we're fortunate in that regard, but it's not to say that it couldn't happen. So just wanted people to be aware of that. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, so with Stop Waste, wanted to just point out, you know, of course, this is, you know, we've got Earth Day coming up. They have a link on their site called Earth Month Toolkit. It's designed to help you share lots of their resources and events that are happening. And also just wanted to point out, in addition to the Earth Month Toolkit and online event calendar, They're also having some other clinics, Oakland electrification clinics, and some program updates for them is that they are now accepting nominations for the 2023 Stop Waste Environmental Leadership Awards, which will be presented in June, as well as they've got some carbon farming workshops at the agency property, and just reading through some, it's a lot of stuff going on. So with Stop Waste, it's a lot of stuff going on. I highly encourage anybody who's interested to go onto their website and take a look at all of the different programs, the outreach that they're doing in so many different communities. And I know our city staff works really closely with them, and I'm sure we're going to hear a lot more on other details as well. Oh, thank you, City Clerk. Bringing up all this fun information here. As you can see, it's just ongoing. Lots of information, lots of, what am I trying to say? Lots of support from different areas, and just encourage everybody to check that out further.
Thank you. Any questions from council?
No, I actually forgot a meeting that I think would be useful to report. And I apologize, I don't remember her title, Michelle Plaus, she Community Development Analyst, is that? Okay, thank you. So she and I met with a research program manager at the California Energy Commission, and this was regarding the development of a program to electrify existing buildings, particularly buildings that are in locations that are at the ends of the gas distribution network, and also are buildings that are naturally occurring affordable housing, so some of the 1960s, 70s multi-residence buildings. And the council directed staff to pursue this, I think, in October 21. And somebody connected me to this program manager and said that the CEC has issued grants to consultants to develop how would the state pursue this. And so there's a developing relationship there. It was confirmation of Albany's desire to be a leader in this area, because the research manager said, this is a great case history because nobody's really doing it yet. They're thinking about it, they're thinking about how to do it, but to actually be pursuing it. And so some of what Albany has learned already through what it's done, and through the work of the community development analyst is already informative. And so that the research program manager offered to connect us to one of the consultants that's pursuing this project, and they've now reached out to meet. So even short of doing the project, which is a pilot project, which, it's a difficult thing to try to get a whole block of people to decide to electrify. Albany's already been a leader in that regard. So we'll keep pursuing that.
Further comments or questions from council?
President, I realized there was the Alameda County Transportation Commission we were able to meet with. Sorry. As the appointee, as the alternate, and you as the appointee, we were able to meet with staff about San Pablo Avenue. Sorry, I'm going to drink some more water.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was a busier month than I'm remembering. Yes, we met with Alameda, as he said, Alameda County Transportation Commission staff. We met with the community development director beforehand to kind of tune up on our knowledge of where Albany staff is at. And one of the items we discussed is that the features that we discussed is that the Transportation Commission in their currently scoped project, they were proposing to put what's called a rectangular rapid flashing beacon on Marin at Keynes, which is what exists on Talbot. I mean, what exists on Marin at Talbot and some other place in the city. But we felt that because that's so close to San Pablo and the eastbound motorists are racing for that merge right there, that was not a good solution. And so we were pushing for the kind of signal that exists on San Pablo at Talbot. It's called a pedestrian hybrid beacon. And they were open to that, and we kind of strategized what was the implication of that for their project schedule. And that would have to also be intertied with the signal at San Pablo, which was another goal that we had, because a rectangular rapid flashing beacon, you could get people trying to cross while the signal's green on Marin and backing up motorists into that intersection and just causing real chaos. Whereas if it's a real signal that's intertied, then it can only, it will only go red on Marin when San Pablo, that signal at San Pablo is red. We discussed some other things, but I'll leave it there.
Thank you. With that, is there any public comment on this? Can we give people 1 minute?
Good evening, this is Jeremiah. Two things. One is that once again, Peggy McQuaid is not giving a report for like the 4th month in a row. I'm just wondering why there's no alternate for the Alameda County Housing Authority subcommittee, because housing is really important. And every meeting, she's not here to give a report. And so I was just hoping that we can finally find an alternate to attend and learn, and then bring something back to the city of Albany regarding housing. Peggy just fails to show up every city council meeting and not giving a report. So I just...
Thank you for your comment. Any more? I'll say on that I believe at our last meeting, I think it was our last meeting, I read former Councilmember McQuaid's report from the Housing Authority. I don't believe I have one this time, but I assume that we'll have one again soon. I believe at actually our next meeting, she will be giving a presentation on what the Housing Authority does. So she has been sending in reports and will continue to do so, and will be presenting on that committee next meeting on the 1st of May.
Mayor, Ms. McQuaid also indicated to me that the meeting happened the morning that we're posting the agenda. So that is the reason why her report will be at the next agenda.
Excellent. Thank you for that clarification. That brings us to future agenda items. Is there anyone on council who would like to note an item for a future agenda?
Yeah, I guess I could report this actually. Was a busy month under the previous item. So I also met with, I've reached out to Assemblymember Wicks's staff regarding the situation with contraflow motorist parking on Keynes and Adams that exists now, because they've been converted to two-way, and expressing interest in Albany getting a carve out and state law similar to what the city of Long Beach has for various streets there, which is for a different reason than Albany's, but at least there's that precedent law. Staff has expressed a lot of interest. I met with their legislative director last week, and they've asked the Albany Council to take some action on that. So I'll bring that back next time.
Thank you. Any future agenda? Nope.
Sorry, just a quick question for clarity. Is that to allow motorists to... Oh, sorry. Clarification, is that to allow motorists to park in...
It's to allow left side parking on a two-way street, which we call left side parking, we call contraflow parking. I don't know. We could pick our term of, next meeting we could pick our term that we want to refer to it by.
So this is not an agenda item that I think we need to tackle next meeting, next month, in November. But I do want to raise that in the midst of the past election cycle, it became apparent that there was a need for council to pass a resolution on the process of appointment. My understanding, if I remember correctly, is the previous council passed something that was really only intended for the last election. And I would love to not have to be under that kind of pressure to have a discussion and have a series of working sessions on those items. So again, this is not something that has to happen now, but I would love for it to happen well in advance of November 2024. Not that I anticipate that there'll be a need to use it, but you never know. And so I just want to recognize that that's something that I want to make sure we keep an eye on. And I know that I have discussed this with the city manager in the past, and not sure. I'm just reminding everyone around the dais that this is something that I think this ties back to things that make me extremely excited about what staff has presented today, the city manager presented, the assistant city manager presented, about reporting back on the strategic plan, tagging these things so we have long-term, just kind of self-accountability, remembering these things we promised to do, and not in the most unfortunate situations finding out that we were supposed to do something. So I'm just raising that tonight. So.
Thank you for doing so. I've had the exact same thought in the past week of, I really need to work on that. Any other future agenda items?
Well, I'll just offer there's a lot in the can on that one, fortunately, already, so it might not, there's a lot in the can already.
Oh, okay.
You know, so I think it won't be, the key part is remembering. I don't think the lift is going to be that heavy at this point because so much work was done, but
All right.
That's the hope.
But just forgetting would be, yeah, not good. So thank you.
Any public comment on this item? Okay. Brings us to an announcement of city meetings and events. I ask everyone to govern themselves to the calendar, and while I have you all, I will note that we will have an agenda item about this on our next agenda for Affordable Housing Month and the start of it, but there is a kickoff event for that I must invite you all to. It is my job to invite you all to, so there are more details about that I can send over email, but there's a kickoff event on the
Wait, so what is the event? It's Affordable Housing Month?
This is the East Bay Housing Organization's kickoff event for Affordable Housing Month,
okay.
Which is in the first week of May.
I believe it's May 4th.
Thank you. It is May 4th. I should remember
May
that.
the 4th be with you.
Every time I look at it, I'm like, because
May
they're
the
on Star
4th
Wars
be with
Day.
you. Yeah, on Star Wars Day.
Yes, on Star Wars Day. With that, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Members of the City Council, Vice Mayor, City Clerk, City Manager, City Attorney, all city staff, and everyone who's stuck with us through the night. We are adjourned.
Less than 2 hours.
Yeah, less than 2 hours.
Less than 2 hours. I thought about adding a few items just to go beyond 2 hours, just for you.
Trying.